every now and then, strange things happen that we can't quite fully explain. Some people call them supernatural experiences, some people call them ghost stories. I'm not entirely sure what I would refer to these experiences as, but it's a question I get asked quite often. Has anything strange happened to you while you're on the road? And the short answer is yes, but let me tell you a little bit more about it. Hello and welcome to another video on my channel. I'm Rohit, you know me here as Toll Free Traveler, and today we're talking strange experiences that I've had on the road. I think I should start off by saying that I don't really believe in ghosts. I think it's important that I don't believe in ghosts because I do some pretty crazy things in life. In fact, I don't watch horror movies. As much as I'm told that it's a thrilling experience to watch horror movies, I think that if a movie is made really well, it can sometimes leave you with these subconscious fears. And given that I'm someone who likes to often travel alone, camp alone, I do a lot of strange things in life, and I don't want to allow any sort of subconscious fear to enter my mind, because sometimes I could be in a place where nothing is really happening, but because of some fear I have from some movie I watched, I might end up being more scared of the situation than I would be otherwise. So I'm not really one to categorize anything as a ghost story, but there are a few things that have happened to me that I can't quite fully explain. I want to tell you two shortish stories. One is a little bit less strange than the other overall, but let's start with the first one. The first one was when I was in Lakhpat in Gujarat on my way back from Delhi to Chennai. I was riding alone. Lakhpat's this fort, like an ancient fort, basically the ruins of some sort of a settlement. It's near the Kutch area of Gujarat. So I'd ridden down there to just go see the ancient ruins. And when I got there, it was around the middle of the day, 11 or 12 noon, and nobody else was around. It was quite a terribly hot day. But I went in, and as you go through, you find these little lanes where you basically have ruins of old buildings on either side. They must have been magnificent structures back in the day, and today they're very intriguing ruins. So since I was there and I wanted to look around a little bit, I parked my motorcycle and got out of my gear, took off my helmet, left it on the bike, took off my gloves, left them on top of my luggage, and then I was walking around for a while. And it was a fantastic place to see. It was really interesting, and obviously these structures are beautiful, even though they're in complete ruins right now. But I spent some time, maybe like 20 minutes walking around, and then I came back to my motorcycle, and everything was the way I'd left it. I was back at my bike. I'd walked away almost 100 meters, and I came back to my bike. All of my stuff was there. And then I decided, you know what, I want to take a couple more pictures. So my bike was in front of me. I turned around and I took a few more pictures of the buildings, maybe like 30 seconds, and then I turned back and my gloves were gone. My gloves that were sitting at the back on top of my luggage on my bike, they just went missing. I'd seen them 30 seconds before and they were just gone, like that. It made no sense. Possibly something came and took it and went. That is the most rational explanation for that experience, but I couldn't find anyone. I couldn't find anything around me, even though I quickly ran around into some buildings to look for someone or something that might have taken my gloves, because I didn't want to be riding my motorcycle without gloves on the highway. But no trace of anything, and it was very strange. It was something that to this day I've never been able to understand. But as far as whatever like strange experiences go, it was not something great. I think the most strange experience that I've had is something that happened to me when I was riding up Sela Pass in Arunachal Pradesh. Some of you might have heard of it. Sela Pass is on the way to Tawang, and it's a very famous pass in Arunachal Pradesh. It's not really a very challenging pass to ride, but because of the weather over there, it can be very strange. So obviously there are some bad roads and It's under development, a lot of the roads over there, so it's kind of challenging to ride. But the thing about Sela is that the weather changes very quickly. It's known to be snowed in at random times of year. You can never be sure whether you're going to cross Sela Pass, at least as of 2017, which is when I was there, because the pass would open and close very quickly. Like, things would change very quickly because of the weather. So on the day that I was riding Sela Pass, I started from Dirang, which is a town maybe about 60-70 kilometers away from Sela top, and I began riding up. It was a cloudy day, so I expected that things were going to get more interesting as I climbed higher. Sure enough, maybe 1 or 2 hours into the ride, it started getting quite cloudy and misty, and eventually it got very, very foggy or misty, and I could barely see. My visibility was really poor, and the road is quite narrow. This is the first time I was on that road, so it wasn't the ideal scenario to be riding. Visibility was very, very poor. So beyond a point, I was riding extremely slowly, and I was a little bit worried about whether or not I would be able to identify where the road is turning, because this is a twisting mountain road at the end of the day, and when your visibility is less than 15-20 meters, then you need to be a little bit cautious, because you never know if you're riding too fast and you miss a turn, that can be the end of everything. So I was just crawling my way up the mountain pass, wondering how on earth I was going to finish this adventure that I had set out on, when suddenly, out of nowhere, because I'm covered in mist, this car just goes past me. I remember that I didn't hear any noise as it went past me, and it was a Tata Sumo. For those of you who know what a Tata Sumo is, it is one of the noisiest vehicles ever. It's a popular sort of SUV of sorts. It's not really an SUV, but it looks like one, from many years ago, which makes a racket. It's a popular tourist taxi as well. So this car sort of zooms past me, and in that moment I didn't realize that it wasn't making too much noise as it went past. But anyway, it went past me, and as soon as it got in front of me, he turned on his hazard lights, right, I assume. So the lights start blinking, and I'm following this car. I decided that I would just focus on the lights of this car and follow it all the way as far as I could, if I could keep up with this car. So now I have this car in front of me. We're going through this twisting road, and all I can see are the blinking lights, obviously. And at times when we're going through like a corner and taking a turn, I can see inside the car. But when I look inside the car, I can't really make out whether there are people inside or not. And I can make out that there is at least one person, this one woman that I could see. But every time that I saw this woman, because the car was turning in some direction, you would usually expect a person to be sort of leaning when you're going up a winding road, but there was no motion. Every time I could see this one figure in the car, and she was not in the driver's seat, she was in the passenger seat. I never got to see the driver of that car for some strange reason, and the woman was just perfectly still. The car is turning up a hairpin bend, and she was just perfectly still. That's all I could see. Obviously I was also looking at the road and sort of riding my motorcycle, so I will not say I had like 100% clear view of the situation, but this is what I remember of it. So for the next 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, I'm simply following the lights of this car. This is something that a lot of us do, whether you're in a car or a bike. If you can't really see well, often you depend on the lights of a vehicle in front to help you navigate better. So I didn't think too much of it, but as I was going, the only things I saw were the blinking lights, and once in a while I saw this woman who I noticed was not moving at all, but I didn't think about it. My priorities were to make sure I stayed safe on the road and to follow this car while keeping a safe distance, so that I would eventually, hopefully, be able to navigate the situation better. And eventually we reached the top of Sela Pass, and at the top there's this arch that you need to pass under, and then the Sela Lake is on your left right after you cross the arch. I didn't intend to stop at the top because I knew that the weather conditions were quite crazy, and I figured eventually you come back down the same route. So I thought that as long as I have this car in front of me, let me keep riding with the car and basically get down to a lower altitude on the other side where things clear up a little bit more. But as I was going through the pass, obviously because Sela Pass is something that I've been wanting to ride for many years, and eventually I was at the top of Sela, just going under the arch, I looked up to read what was written on the arch. maybe 10 seconds, couldn't have been more than that. I looked up to just read what was written on the arch, and when I looked down, the car was gone. It had just vanished into the mist. Just as quickly as it had appeared, it just vanished, and I accelerated and rode a bit faster to try and find it. Actually, the road, when you reach the top, it winds around the lake, so your visibility is a bit better and everybody's at the same height. The road is not climbing and it's not turning quickly for you to lose sight of a vehicle. It's actually a relatively straight road compared to everything else. But within those few seconds, I completely lost sight of the car.
It just vanished.
Once that happened, obviously I decided, okay, it's not a great idea to keep riding any further. I sort of turned around and there was a little tea shop at the top of Sela Pass. I decided to wait over there to see whether the weather clears up or not. And it took a while, but eventually the weather did clear up. But while I was sitting there having a nice hot cup of tea, it sort of struck me that the whole appearance and disappearance of this vehicle that led me safely to the top of Sela Pass was extremely strange. That's when I actually thought about it, and I realized that I don't exactly know what that was. It could have well been just a tourist taxi, like a real tourist taxi that happened to be at the same place where I was. But it was weird to think about the fact that for 45 minutes I'd been able to stay the same distance away from this one vehicle. And when I reached the top of Sela Pass and I took my eyes off it for just a few seconds, it completely vanished once I was safely at the top of Sela Pass. The timing was just so strange. I mean, I couldn't help but wonder whether maybe it was something that had just appeared to guide me to the top of Sela Pass. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there are ghost stories. With most mountain passes, there are ghost stories. There are legends. There are tales about supernatural experiences or ghost stories connected to them. This was probably the only time ever in life that something has happened to me at a mountain pass, which makes me wonder whether some of those stories have credibility. I don't know. Again, a lot of these things, you could have a completely rational explanation to them, but if you ask me whether something strange has happened to me, these are some instances where strange things have happened that I can't fully explain. Might have been something completely normal, which is always the case with any of these stories, right? There could potentially be a very sensible, normal explanation to them, but I haven't been able to think of what that is. And in the way that it happened to me, definitely, it was different from when something normal has happened. I don't want to think about it too much because, like I said, I don't really... I think it's better for me to not get caught up in this universe of being afraid of things that we don't entirely understand. But yeah, for those of you who wanted to know whether strange things have ever happened to me while I'm on the road, they have. In some cases to my detriment, and in some cases hugely helpful. I can't explain them, but they made a huge difference. They got me someplace safely when I didn't think I would be able to do that. That's the end of this story. That's the end of this behind the scenes video. Thank you for watching. I will catch you guys in the next one.